Tonight on NewsWatch, the search for the missing Malaysian plane, why investigators are focusing on the pilots and its disappearance.
Plus, the referendum to join Russia. Crimean voters say yes, but the Western world says no. A look at what comes next.
And CBN News heads to Israel for a look at what it's like living under the constant threat of rocket fire. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. Good evening. I'm Mark Martin.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Well, questions remain tonight over what exactly happened to that missing Malaysian plane. But what is now known, its disappearance was no accident. Someone deliberately diverted Flight 370. And as the search continues for the plane, the investigation is beginning to focus on the pilots. Dale Hurd has more in tonight's top story.
As investigators continue to analyze the evidence, the search for the missing Malaysia Airlines jet has deepened from Australia to Kazakhstan.
There's two possible trajectories here, one southward into the Indian Ocean and one northwards more into around where western China is and Pakistan and Kazakhstan.
Investigators say the jet carrying 239 people was deliberately diverted and its communications equipment switched off. Investigators haven't ruled out hijacking, sabotage, pilot suicide, or mass murder, and they're checking the backgrounds of all passengers and crew members, as well as the ground crew, to see if links to terrorist, personal problems, or psychological issues could be factors. Suspicion has fallen on the pilots because of their aviation experience.
I think it's pretty outrageous. I have to say that it took the Malaysian government, about a week to search these pilots' homes and start investigating them, the crew, and the passengers.
Investigators are focusing in on the pilots' personal lives, including reports that the co-pilot had once broken safety standards in the cockpit, and that the captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, was an ardent follower of a Malaysian opposition leader, sentenced to prison the very day of the ill-fated flight. At the home of Captain Shah, police confiscated 2 laptops and his home flight simulator, seen in this YouTube video he posted.
I cannot imagine him doing anything to hurt himself, the passengers, the property.
U.S. officials say the plane most likely ran out of fuel in the South Indian Ocean, where Australia is now coordinating the search. 26 countries are looking for the plane. The U.S. has sent a P-8A Poseidon, the most advanced long-range anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare aircraft in the world. The U.S. Navy has deployed the destroyer USS Kidd. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Our terrorism analyst Eric Stakelbeck offered more of his insights on the missing plane today on the 700 Club. To see that full interview, visit our website, cbnnews.com.
Turning now to Ukraine, tensions are high tonight after voters in the Crimean Peninsula decided Sunday to split from the country and join Russia. The move comes as Russian forces continue to take control of more Ukrainian territory. George Thomas reports.
With the Crimean Peninsula now under their full control, Russian forces backed by multiple helicopter gunships captured another Ukrainian town this weekend that holds a natural gas facility.
They say they are protecting us from terrorist acts, but they don't explain which terrorist acts exactly.
Russia has deployed 60,000 troops along Ukraine's border as the government in Kiev worries about a full-scale invasion.
We are deeply concerned about reports of Russian military units moving closer.
Pro-Russian separatists say Crimea is just the beginning in their quest to create a greater Russia. Hours after residents voted to overwhelmingly break away from Ukraine and join Russia, Crimea's deputy prime minister said he'll give Russian troops safe passage to the eastern part of the country, where he predicts Russia will go next. To understand the conflict in Crimea, you have to look at the makeup of this region. More than 60% of Crimeans identify themselves as ethnic Russian.
We came back home to Mother Russia. We came home. Russia is our home.
While the majority of ethnic Russians voted for secession, ethnic Ukrainians and Muslim Tatars boycotted the vote. The West, including the United States, dismissed the poll as a sham and promised more sanctions against Russia. This morning, Russian flags flew over every corner of the Crimean capital as the parliament here declared the region an independent state. Russia is expected to formally announce annexation later this week.
Back from the Ukraine, and he joins us now with more. Welcome, George.
Thanks.
Now, we want to mention that the U.S. and much of the Western world say they are not going to recognize this vote.
Yeah.
What are they doing to go against it?
Well, in essence, the European Union, along with the United States today, levied some very tough sanctions on Russian officials, specifically 21 individuals who surround Vladimir Putin's circle. And here's what the President of the United States said late this afternoon.
As an initial step, I'm authorizing sanctions on Russian officials, entities operating in the arms sector in Russia, and individuals who provide material support to senior officials of the Russian government. And if Russia continues to interfere in Ukraine, we stand ready to impose further sanctions.
Okay, so in the short term, this is not going to make much of an impact. But long term, if these sanctions continue 7, 8, a year, 2 years down the road, these 21 guys are going to feel the pinch economically.
Well, what happens next in Crimea?
You know, it's amazing. I mean, we have, in essence, a new Crimea. I think next month, the government there announced that all Crimeans will begin to get paid in Russian rubles. The Ukrainian currency will still stand. But in essence, you're going to see in the next few weeks, months ahead, a total takeover of what was a Ukrainian outpost today will be Russian totally.
Well, some have raised concerns that this is only the beginning, that from Crimea, Russia is going to move to take other parts of Ukraine.
Yeah.
What do you think?
They did. I mean, hours before Crimeans rather, went to vote on this referendum, Russian troops, about 200 Russian troops with backed by helicopter gunships, they walked across probably about 5 miles north of Crimea, took over a town that had a natural gas facility. They have about 60,000 troops along the eastern corridor of Ukraine, less than 30 miles from the Ukrainian border. Clearly, this is either intimidation or, as the Kiev government fear, that there could be a full-scale invasion of the country.
Is anybody going to stop the Russians?
No, I mean, because they have the upper hand. I mean, they look at the West, they look at the European Union. These sanctions are just a slap on the hand for now. So they clearly have the military advantage going down the road to see how the U.S. will continue to respond. Will they respond with force in terms of putting military assets in position to scare the Russians? That's a big question. I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, our senior international correspondent, George Thomas, thank you.
You're welcome.
In Syria, the Assad regime has taken control of a town that's long been held by rebel forces. The town of Yobrad is near the border of Lebanon. Since losing control Sunday, rebel fighters have been fleeing the city, trying to cross the border. The Lebanese army is sending troops to the area as tensions run high. Meanwhile, taking control of Yobrad was a major gain for the Assad regime. The city served as the last rebel stronghold near the border. Fighting for the town has been taking place for months, and this weekend marked the 3rd anniversary of the Syrian civil war. Since the fighting began, more than 140,000 people have been killed.
President Obama is seeking to keep negotiations between Israel and Palestine moving forward. In a meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas earlier today, Obama emphasized direct talks with Israel as the only path to a sovereign Palestinian state. Meanwhile, hundreds of Abbas supporters in the West Bank rallied, urging Abbas to resist calls to make concessions, especially on the issue of recognizing Israel as a Jewish state. That's a key condition set forth by Israel during Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington 2 weeks ago.
Jewish people around the world are celebrating the holiday of Purim this week. In the book of Esther, you'll recall the Bible records the story of how the Jews gained victory over a wicked government official's plot to destroy them. Some say the theme of the story is still being played out today. Julie Stahl explains.
These children in the southern Israeli city of Sderot are out to celebrate Purim, even though they were under rocket attack just a few days ago.
It's about fun, it's about smiling all day long, it's about being something you're not.
At the Western Wall and in synagogues, the biblical book of Esther is read from a scroll. The Bible says Haman, a wicked advisor to King Ahasuerus, conspired to kill all the Jews throughout the ancient kingdom of Persia on one day. But Queen Esther, who unknown to the king was Jewish, and her cousin Mordecai exposed the plot and turned the tables. So the Jews were victorious over their enemies, and that's what they celebrate at Purim. In that spirit, Sderot residents took to the streets.
We're very happy that it's very quiet right now, and we have the chance to go out and see all the costume, and we love Sderot.
The purpose of the rockets is to scare us, and everything we do is not to let it scare us.
Just a few days earlier, Iranian-backed Islamic Jihad launched dozens of rockets at Sderot and communities nearby.
I'm making events here 12 years in the city. Never did we cancel one event, not because of the Qassam.
No, it's a holiday. We celebrate it if we have rockets or not without rockets. It's our holiday.
We asked Sderot residents if they see a connection between the story of Purim and today.
Yeah, president of Iran, and Purim is happening in Persia, so maybe there's some connection, but still here. Just like in Purim, we're here and we're fine.
I think the connection is to try to forget our daily routine here, still have this nice celebration here.
Always in every generation, there arises one who wants to kill the Jews, and then the creator of the world overturns it all.
Happy Purim holiday. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Sderot.
Happy Purim, right back to you. Well, later on NewsWatch, we'll head back to Sderot to see how people there deal with the constant threat of rocket fire. Stick around.
Coming up, a look at the winter weather that shut down the nation's capital today. Welcome back. Spring officially begins Thursday, but millions along the East Coast and Mid-Atlantic are digging out yet again, Wendy.
It just won't come soon enough. Winter's latest punch forced the federal government, schools, and offices to shut down. Our John Jessup has more on what's been described as one of the snowiest winters on record.
St. Patrick's Day is traditionally associated with the color green, but white has trumped St. Paddy's shamrock green because so much of it covers parts of the country after yet another winter snowstorm.
From Virginia to New Jersey, a wave of winter weather swept across the East Coast. And while snow covered much of the Northeast, the Southeast was hit with heavy rains, and there were even reports of tornadoes. Near the Florida-Alabama state line, the storm ripped off the roof of a shopping center.
It was very scary. I was shaking, and I felt like I had to get to the back.
And here in the nation's capital, the feds have shut down once again, and Reagan National Airport closed runways due to drifting snow. That grounded about 300 flights. A state of emergency has been declared as 200 plow trucks are feverishly working to clear the roadways. Overall, 10 inches of snow are expected in some places. Hard to believe we're just days away from the official start of spring. I'm John Jessup. Back to you.
Thanks, John. And that looks like that wet, messy snow, too. Well, a decades-old Bible survived the East Harlem building collapse last week, and some are calling it a miracle. Workers found the treasured antique in the rubble. Several members of the 80-year-old Spanish Christian church expressed shock and joy when they learned that the Bible didn't go up in flames somehow. The Reverend Thomas Perez experienced heart palpitations and had to be taken to the hospital when they found the holy book. Hey, this is good news, Pastor. Don't have a heart attack. Well, 5 church members are among the 8 people who died in that blast.
Up next, living on the front lines, meet the residents of an Israeli city known as Rocket Town.
Just last week, militants in Gaza fired dozens of rockets into southern Israel. It's a situation residents of the town of Sderot know all too well.
Yeah, the town borders Gaza and is often where rockets end up falling. Scott Ross visited to see what it's like to live under constant fire.
They call it Rocket Town, the bomb shelter capital of the world. For more than a decade, Israelis in Sderot and southern Israel have lived under almost daily rocket attacks from the Gaza Strip.
Is this representative of what you're dealing with here all the time?
The truth is, this is a very small fraction of the rockets themselves that exploded here in the region itself.
You have people getting killed here in your town?
We had over 44 people being killed overall by rocket fire. Over 1,200 been seriously injured. At the same time, you have an entire generation that grew up with this kind of reality of sirens going off.
David Busquila was born and raised in Sderot and has been the city's mayor for 14 years.
You love this town, you love the people?
Of course.
Yes.
Someone that not love this town cannot live here.
Day by day, you have to deal with this lifestyle where rockets are being showered literally upon you. How does one adjust to that, if you ever do, really?
In April 2001, it was the first missile that launched to this city. Since then, we had more than 8,000 missiles.
8,000?
8,000 missiles that land only in Sderot. It's a little town, 5.5 square kilometers. 25,000 people live here. And you can imagine that 8,000 hit almost every apartment, every house in this city.
Busquila says many Israelis here suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. The mayor took me to a hill on the edge of town where we could see just how close the Gaza Strip is.
This is the border. It's 840 meters. It's the meaning is something like half a mile.
They could fire rockets at these towers and knock them down, and
they launch rockets to the electric power station.
Yes. You supply Gaza.
We gave them electric, and they launch rockets to block the electric power station, and then to complain that they have darkness in Gaza. You see, this is not normal.
Everyone who drives in Sderot turns off the radio and rolls the windows down, ready to hear the color red siren to make a mad dash for safety.
And here I am in a playground where kids come and play. Here's a caterpillar, and anywhere else in the world this would be a normal caterpillar. However, this is a bit different. This is in fact a bomb shelter. So when kids come out here to play, a siren goes off. They have 15 seconds to get inside here to be protected from falling bombs. How does this environment affect children as they're growing up?
Only yesterday I was talking to one of my friends that her a boy is in our kindergarten too. We had 2 alarms yesterday or the day before, I don't remember. And he was so panicked that she had to get out of work and come and get him. And he is only 2 years old.
Hagar Aloni is Sderot's social worker.
We have to be aware of where a bomb shelter is, right?
Right there, yeah.
Okay, tell me where to run in case something lands
Okay.
here.
Nothing moved me more than meeting Geut Aragon. In January 2008, she was sitting in her home with her 4-year-old son Nir and a neighbor child on her lap. A rocket crashed through the room where they were sitting.
The bomb come through the wall into the room. All the roof was crushed on us from the,
explosion.
The explosion. The girl was, fly to the corner. There was 4 shrapnels in my head.
Yeah.
And they operated and they took out 3 of them, but one of them, it get deep into the brain, so they don't want to touch it.
Geut was in rehab for 1.5 years, but that wasn't the end of her trouble. Nearly 5 years later, her son is still afraid to sleep in his room. The family has to run to the bomb shelter sometimes 3 times a night. So why does she stay?
It's my country, it's my city. I'm born here.
Right.
I love it. If you want to move, you need to sell the house. No one wants to buy a house in Sderot. No one wants to come from outside to live under bombing,
Mm-hmm.
But I have to tell you, even that, we very love this city.
How does it affect you now when you hear the rockets landing? Because they're still shooting them here.
Every time I heard the siren, it takes me back then.
Yeah.
And when I go down to the shelter, as I'm sitting, and I'm trying, and I start crying every time and again and again.
Do you believe that God protected you?
Yeah, yeah.
You do believe that?
I believe that, yeah.
You're not angry? You're not angry with God because He allowed it to happen?
No, I think now, and I thought back then that it was the miracle, and
oh, yeah.
He protects on me, and he leaves me here in this world, living for my boys, because, and I thank Him every morning. I never was that believer, you know?
No.
But since day, I believe more in God.
Scott Ross, CBN, Sderot, Israel.
Wow. What a testimony. Up next, a river goes green. We'll head to Chicago and see how they're celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Well, people across the country are celebrating St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, the city of Chicago is well known for its parade and an unusual tradition. For more than 50 years, the Chicago River has been dyed green for the holiday. Look at all that green. Well, this weekend, workers dumped powder into the river, turning the water emerald green. Thousands gathered to see the river and enjoy the parade, which included more than 160 groups like Irish dancers, bagpipers, and marching bands.
It's becoming such a huge tourist attraction for Chicago, so I think the hotels are going to be full and the establishments will be full today.
My grandparents were off the boat from Ireland, so we said we are going to Chicago for St. Paddy's Day.
Good for her. Well, the year marked Chicago's 59th annual St. Patrick's Day parade, and whether you're Irish or not, close to 1 million people, most in green, attended the celebration.
How did they get that much green powder into that river?
That's a lot of powder.
That's a lot of powder, and I guess it's safe for the environment, or
you
else
would hope
they wouldn't do it
we might
right.
be doing a story on that.
Nice green tie, by the way.
And nice green dress.
Happy St. Paddy's Day, everybody.
Yeah, have a great night. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.